Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Today is today Sunday? Yeah, today's Sunday, February 14th, 2021. You might be saying, oh, usually, I do this in the morning. The reason why I wanted to do it today was because, at this time in the afternoon, was because I know that you guys tend to generally like the main episodes more, so the regular ones. So I thought I'd put that out first, put a little more time into that, a little more research, and on top of that, I mean, normally I get up around like 5:30 in the morning to give you guys the news in case you're driving into work or whatever. And I figured because it's a Sunday, might as well space it out a little more, just try it out and see if this method doesn't work. I'll go back to doing the mornings still on Sundays, but like Monday to Thursday, it'll still be very early in the morning, the news updates, so don't worry about that. Now, let us jump right into it. So, let's see what we got first here. Sorry, just got to adjust that. All right. So, first off, 3 people died in a 70-vehicle wreck in Fort Worth in Texas. It's unfortunate. I normally don't report on like traffic accidents and stuff like that, but like a 70-vehicle collision, if not more, like Jesus, that's a lot. That's insane. That takes a lot of damage to really create that type of collision and all that. The next thing is that 5 people associated with the Proud Boys have been arrested on conspiracy charges. Look, the thing with the Proud Boys is that it's a very delicate issue, and I don't mean delicate like we can offend people if we talk about it. What I'm saying is that it depends on what each individual goal within the Proud Boys is, and we have to look at the patterns. If there is, assuming we believe the FBI, if there is a pattern of constant reoccurring, drug dealing, gambling operations, they'll look for any reason, just like they do with the biker gangs and stuff. They'll look for any reason to make this a criminal organization. I'm not defending the Proud Boys, but I do want to say, just like with everything else, there's certain elements within everything in life that are good and certain elements that are bad. So we got to be consistent. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to defend the Proud Boys. I'm not trying to say they're innocent at all. But again, we have to look at this neutrally and be consistent, right? Like, for example, if we look at, let's say, the Hells Angels, we know that governments all around the world are trying within their own respective countries to make the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club a criminal gang or a criminal organization. In some countries they are, in other countries they aren't. And I say that because it really depends on the individual. Some people can be part of a group and not be involved in any illegal activity. However, at the end of the day, the question then becomes, is the group so bad that just by, being associated, you're going to get screwed, right? So that's what it comes down to. The next thing is that China banned the BBC from being allowed to broadcast in their country with no explanation. I mean, look, maybe they're not happy on the BBC reporting on the Muslim Uyghurs. Again, I apologize if I butchered that, with being slaughtered and, the organs being harvested, as the New York Times has reported. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Again, China's not new to this. They got from what I understand, they don't have Google in China. They have their own versions of it. They don't have Facebook in China and things like that because, again, the CCP, not the Chinese people, but the CCP, they really want to have control. And look, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, nor is it a good thing. That's not for me to decide. I will tell you, as I always do in the morning episodes and the news episodes, when I'm going to step in with my opinion and then when I'm just trying to report neutrally. I guess it depends on the people, what they think, if they even have a choice, if the CCP really controls things, and the tradition. I mean, China's very deep-seated in a multi-thousand-year traditional way of doing things. Not to say that what the CCP is doing is what every Chinese person in China would want, but it's interesting to see. So when we see the BBC get banned, we have to think, is this a political play? Did they not like a story the BBC put out, right? We have to look at all these angles. The next thing is that Elon Musk told Joe Rogan he wants the new Roadster to hover, and he said, which is pretty cool, which is not necessarily like that hard to do if we use, well, I mean, I might be jumping the gun here, but, magneto-leviton technology and things like that, but that might not be commercially available or might be way too expensive at the current time. But anyways, he also said he spends zero time thinking about aliens, and he also publicly asked Putin to have a discussion with him on Clubhouse. I think that's a streaming thing. I don't know exactly. But let me address that one at a time. A lot of people reached out to me last few days saying, Dave, what did you think about the thing with Elon saying there's no aliens and all that? For those of you who don't know why I've been asked that, just check out my afternoon episodes and you'll see why. I think that he stirs the pot. A relative actually pointed this out to me yesterday, and he made a good point. My uncle did. He said, remember, Elon likes to stir the pot. at the same time, he said he's seen no evidence of it. I don't know if he's trolling. I mean, Elon does like to troll, but at the same time, he seemed quite serious in the Joe Rogan interview. But the guy's entitled to an opinion. I mean, I'm disappointed. If he's saying it seriously, then I'm honestly disappointed. I mean, I'm not saying you gotta believe in aliens, but at the same time, just take a look at the evidence. When the CIA director, former CIA director John Brennan, John Podesta, you name it, it doesn't matter politically what you think of them. Just when these high-level people are saying, look, it's a legit thing. We don't know what's going on with these UFOs. I mean, I think they do know what's going on, but when they say it's a legit thing, it's gotten to the point where it's like, okay, something, maybe some type of revelation, some type of acknowledgement or disclosure is coming slowly but surely. I mean, look, we see the news reports all of a sudden of scientists discovering habits that inhabit life, planets that inhabit life, and other situations where we see that it's more than likely we'll come in contact with an extraterrestrial civilization in the next 20, 30 years. Clearly something is occurring here. There's a disclosure of sorts. I like to think so, and that's my opinion getting in the way, and I will tell you guys that. Ultimately, if you don't believe in aliens, I respect that just as much, and again, Elon likes to stir the pot, so we'll see. Maybe he's just bullshitting, just trying to, garner attention, not attention, but again, stir the pot. So the next thing is that Britain's Supreme Court found that a group of Nigerian farmers and fishermen can in fact sue the Shell Oil Corporation. Good, I'm happy, because these farmers were a bunch of hardworking people who are, nobodies, just like I am, just like you are, just, the average working person. And maybe nobodies is the wrong word, but you see what I'm trying to say. And they wanted to sue the Shell Corporation for, certain things that were done to them and to their land and things like this. And, it was initially, there was an argument made saying they can't do it. And obviously this is, the David and Goliath thing, the corporation versus the little guy. Supreme Court in Britain ruled this, and I have great respect for that, because you know what? It's all about the little guy versus the big guy, and it's so unfortunate that it's gone to that point. But we look at stuff like GameStop, or we look at stuff like... GameStop in this case, for example, would be a bunch of people coming together and forming more of a powerhouse than the elites. And the reason for that, elites being the corporations, the hedge fund guys, all that bullshit. And the reason for that is because they want to keep us confused. And you say they, might say, okay, Dave, who's they? Without getting too conspiratorial, the ones at the top, the CEOs, the corporations, the ones that actually profit off of division instead of unity. It's very simple. Right? So I'm very happy to see that this ruling came to be. Now let's take a look here as well. Let's see. So White House press secretary, the deputy White House press secretary, did actually was suspended for a week for threatening a political reporter who wanted to look into the deputy press secretary's relationship with an Axios reporter. The political reporter was just following a story. It's not like she was doing anything illegal. And then when she started looking into it, and the deputy press secretary, who's Jen Psaki's assistant, he's called her up and said, I quote, "I will destroy you." So hold on, we got to be consistent here. If we're going to give the far right shit center right for saying these things, we also have to at the same time be consistent here too. Now, when this first came out, in my opinion, this is where I'll bring my opinion in, Biden should have fired him on the spot. No, because he said he has no tolerance for that, for workplace harassment of any kind, especially towards women, and that's fine. So then let him go. I waited, I was patient, and it turns out they fired him. He's resigning, I guess. I mean, it looks better if you resign instead of you're fired, but we all know what really happened there. So you know what? I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. Got to give kudos to Biden or whoever made the call. Simple. He made a mistake. He threatened a reporter. I don't know how, because when you say I'm going to destroy you, that could mean politically, that could mean journalistically, that could mean in the public eye, that could even mean physically. Who the hell knows? It's so open for interpretation. Right? I mean, common sense would say politically, but at the same time, it's such a crazy world these days. We don't know. Who knows? So good. He's gone. Get him out of there. If it was up to me, I know, fine. It took 2-3 days for him to quote unquote resign. If it was up to me, if I'm Biden, once I got all the facts in front of me, okay, he's gone. Sorry, man, you got to go. Screw off. That's it. Done. Right? Now you might say, Dave, it's not as easy as that. It's a little more complicated. I get it. It's politics. That's just the way it goes. Maybe he's related to someone who's doing you a favor or whatever. Don't care. This looks bad publicly. Get out. Done. Right? The next thing is that Maryland has become the first state in the U.S. to put a tax on digital advertising, which could eventually become a federal thing. I mean, sure. I mean, here's the thing. The internet was always supposed to be this thing of freedom, and I get it. They got to have their hands in it so they can curate it and control it as much as they can. which is why a lot of people that I know at least are heading towards the dark web rather than the front end of the internet. But don't kid yourself, the front end of the internet will always be like the government, the front end of the government, the front end of the internet, right? So I guess, I mean, that's, if people are okay paying the tax, I guess. I mean, I don't know if anyone really has a say. If people don't like it, I guess they'll do the, they can do online petitions, or they can actually petition in person or protest in person if they really don't like it. The way I see it is that if the people of Maryland really don't like it, they will make their voices heard, and there will be revision, or it will be taken down completely. It's interesting though, because Maryland has kind of started this initiative that states all across the U.S. have been planning to do for a while now, obviously to generate more income for the state. It's just no one, to put it in plain English, no state, based on my research, has really had the balls to do it yet. So, or I mean, there's regulatory issues too, but you know what I mean. So the next thing is that Biden plans to have Guantanamo Bay closed by the time he ends his term. There's about 40 prisoners there. Obama said the same thing, and we'll see what happens. I honestly, I don't know what the big deal is. Apparently it's immoral or something like this, and the U.S., it's not officially part of the U.S., but the U.S. is still controlling it militarily, so technically it is. I mean, we could classify that as imperialism if the history is correct based on what I know of Guantanamo Bay, of Gitmo, as they call it. Whatever. Honestly, I'm totally, and maybe you guys will disagree with me on this, and maybe you... respectfully, you might be able to change my mind if there's something I'm missing here. I got no problem with it staying open. If you got to have a place for extremely heinous, terrible criminals, if it's not The Hague in Europe, if I'm not mistaken, it should be Guantanamo. You got to get them isolated, because these are bad people. These are mostly, I'd imagine, terrorists, like really bad people, like right up there with the child molesters and all that stuff, right? So again, we'll see what happens, because maybe he won't be able to. Again, I don't think it's the biggest issue, but it's all over the news. So anyways, the next thing is that Biden, I promise this is the last thing on Biden. Biden is calling for gun law reform after he's seen some, instances of shootings and all that and in the past. Nothing ends up happening. So don't call for it if nothing's going to happen. If the Republicans are not going to do it, let's be realistic. Get on and move on with something that might actually work and get through, a piece of legislation or something that might actually help more. I'm not saying, banning guns or assault guns doesn't help. I'm just saying it's not going to happen, at least based on the reality of things. The Republicans won't let it happen. They make way too much money from pro-gun activists and, groups like the NRA and stuff. So I don't see anything happening there. He can call for stuff all he wants. I mean, Jesus Christ can come down and call for Medicare for all, but if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? So, and that's no disrespect to Jesus Christ. I'm just saying. Anyways, the next thing is that vitamin D has been found to dramatically reduce mortality for people with COVID and even for people who are on ICUs. Interesting. And I say that because for many months, people were saying... independent doctors were saying vitamin D actually helps a lot. And then the w.h.o, the CDC were saying, yeah, of course it does, because, it's good for you and all that. But they never really showed how significant it really was. And a lot of people on Instagram were being censored, and Facebook were being censored for saying vitamin D really helps. Maybe they said it wrong by saying cure COVID, assuming COVID's legit, right? I got to say that for YouTube, as I always say. But I guess it comes down to the way in which they worded it, but even then, that's just the big social media elites trying to censor people on a technicality. That's the way that I see it, very simply, right? So the next thing is that new journalists, now, according to multiple sources, CNN, New York Times, you name it. I mean, you look at, I think her name's Barry Weiss, yeah, who resigned from the New York Times because she said that Twitter has essentially become the editor-in-chief for the New York Times. Makes sense. There's more and more reports now coming out that a lot of journalists at, CNN, MSNBC, and all that. And Bill Maher brought this up too. And again, I'm not a big fan of what a lot of Bill Maher says. With that being said, when he calls stuff out, let's call a spade, right? He said that a lot of these journalists, while they're interviewing people on TV, then check Twitter during the commercial break in real time to see if their audience likes what they're saying. And if they don't, then they'll slowly shift the conversation. And it's kind of like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? It's like, what the hell? All right, whatever. But anyways, so we'll see what goes on there. I mean, I don't like to say we'll see what happens, because that kind of just leaves things open for whatever. But again, I'm just here to report it. I'm not here to control what happens. If I could, I would change a lot of things for the better. But anyways, the next thing is that Mexico is getting their AstraZeneca vaccine shipments from India instead of the US. Why? I don't know. Maybe, I honestly don't know. I didn't take the time to look into it. I don't think it's worth looking into that much of it. Again, there's always going to be these things, trade issues, and especially now with the vaccine, they're just going to grab it from whoever has the most stock. Why India? Not sure. Maybe they made a better deal. India offered them a better deal. Who knows, right? Because I believe the Mexico, Canada, US MCA, I think that's the thing. The USMCA, US Mexico Canada arrangement or agreement, the new version of NAFTA essentially, which is much better than NAFTA. Both sides have agreed on that. Maybe it wasn't as good as the deal India was offering. Who knows? Who knows, right? The next thing is that, let's take a look here. New Zealand ordered the largest city by the name of Auckland into a snap lockdown. From my understanding, New Zealand doesn't have, I think they have 2 cases, assuming you believe that. And look, we got to question everything. Let's be honest here, right? So we'll see what happens there. I mean, I apparently they've been doing very good with the shutdowns and stuff like that. So, I mean, define very good. You know what I mean? With respects to people not being able to work and kids very sadly killing themselves with all this mental depression and all that stuff, with all the increase of drug use because everyone's home more often now. So I don't know if I agree with that, but look, we're not in New Zealand now. We're in the West, or maybe some of you watching, you're in India, you're in Asia, Africa, you name Europe. So yeah, if some of you are from New Zealand and you're watching this or listening to this, comment on YouTube and let us know what you think about that, about Auckland going into a snap lockdown. The next thing, or the final thing, is that China refused, and this came out today, according to Al Jazeera, who I would dare to say is right up there with BBC as very respected mainstream media global reporting. And again, I say mainstream media MSM very carefully, but refused to give raw COVID data to the WHO team. So first we got the vitamin D thing, and then we got the China refusing to give the raw data to the WHO, and it took them almost a year to get the scientists into the Wuhan lab from the WHO. What a joke. I mean, we have defectors from China essentially saying that a lot of the WHO's influence comes from China, even though the U.S. gives way more. And look, maybe Trump was right, maybe Trump was wrong. I know people will just keep pointing back to what the events of the 6th. Okay, but let's take that and put that aside for a second. When Trump said about a year and a half ago or about a year ago that that China puts in way less money than the United States and the WHO favors China, I mean, look, that can be argued. I get it. But in a lot of ways, I would dare to say, and this is my opinion, he's not wrong. I mean, there's a lot of things that he said that the media like to shit on him for, pardon my English, but he was correct about a lot of things. And a lot of it was just because, and I'm not trying to defend Trump, I'm just saying, before the 6th, a lot of it was because he was going against the establishment. A lot of it was also very questionable, and that's not for me to say, but you see what I'm trying to get at here, right? So it's interesting, man. I mean, it's interesting. So we'll see how things play out over the course of this coming week if we get new information on some of these reports that I just reported. And I hope you guys have a great Sunday afternoon and evening, depending when you're watching this. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow morning for the news and then the usual afternoon episode. So cheers. Thank you.